Hey, good afternoon, Philadelphia, New Jersey. For those of you watching us on Facebook, Roku, Comcast, I'm Vincent Squire, and welcome to What You Gotta Say. Now, this is live, so you will see a number scrolling. You like what we're saying, you want to chime in, you can talk with us. Now, today is Mental Health Monday, and as always, we got the right doctor, Dr. Herbert Gene Wright II. And he's going to discuss some things for you. But here's some food for thought. Today is the 54th anniversary of the assassination of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Can you believe it? 54 years. And think about how much progress we have made in that period of time. But we're going to discuss some issues. And I'll be right back in 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
Your small business struggled through the pandemic to stay afloat. You need more exposure. Radio and printed ads are good for pet liners. Television commercials are overpriced. Social media ads start cheap, end up expenses. You need an ad team that can get you multimedia exposure. You need MyTV. MyTV will develop a commercial tailored to your business. To get your maximum sales, contact sales@ratemytv.church. Your small business struggled through the pandemic to stay afloat. You need more exposure. Radio and printed ads are good for pet liners. Television commercials are overpriced. Social media ads start cheap, end up expenses. You need an ad team that can get you multimedia exposure. You need MyTV. MyTV will develop a commercial tailored to your business. To get your maximum sales, contact sales@ratemytv.church. Your small business struggled through the pandemic to
And welcome back to Mental Health Monday. Our guest, Dr. H. Gene Wright II. Dr. Gene,
I'm doing
how
well,
you doing?
sir. Glad to be with you again today.
Always glad to have you. So, Mental Health Monday, and we're starting with wellness. The acronyms?
Yes, wellness. As you know, I do a lot of work around the country in terms of health and wellness. And of course, my focus being a clinical and forensic psychology is on mental wellness. But I also like to add in the fact that, we want to have a holistic approach, and that means we want mind, body, and spirit health. And so I use the Wright method, WRIGHT. And so the W, yes, like my name. And so for this week, the W, we want to go with wellness. And so that's what we're using for this. And we'll go down through R, we'll go through I, and GHT. Eventually, we'll get there. And then I'll have some wellness tips for each one of those. But for wellness this Monday, I think it's very important, especially when you consider the challenges the country is under right now and what people are doing. For instance, in my office, this is the first day officially back to work for city employees in the city of Philadelphia. Other places have gone back sooner. Some people are still doing a hybrid. Some people still haven't returned back. So it's imperative that we embrace our wellness, especially as the country starts to open up again and people start going to and fro and back to whatever they used to do, but it certainly will not be like it used to be.
Okay. Well, people have been looking for this silver bullet to cure some of the things that we've been experiencing during the period of COVID and that 18-month shutdown, the misinformation, disinformation, the most publicized and very much scrutinized election following by the insurrection. That's paid a big cost on our mental wellness.
Yes, it's you just described trauma, Vince, and there's several different types of trauma. But when you think about the type of trauma that really impacts your mind, body, and spirit. You just named some things that hit all three. You know, the insurrection, that was nerve-wracking to think that, wow, in our own country, a country of freedom that we are so proud of, that we would allow that type of rebellion, insurrection, albeit, I would say, even domestic terrorism. And so we allowed that. And then you think about the families of people who work in that building and people who have law enforcement family who were hurt or harmed in that building, or could have been hurt or harmed in that building. When they saw what was going on, I'm sure there were people frantically wondering and trying to reach loved ones who work in that building. You talked about the misinformation and the disinformation and the intentional falsehoods that were put out there. That just increases people's stress, and all of that impacts our health. So you are right to mention those three things as an impact.
So how do we get back? I mean, is there, are we going to go to a normal?
Well, I think I would not use that term normal, because I'm not sure we had normal before the pandemic, but I understand why people use that. I understand.
Or our regular norm.
Our regular routine. Yeah. I would say routine, because I think people have started and implemented some new routines. As example, I'm wearing my workout outfit I took today, because this is Mental Health Monday. And I said, you know what? I'm going to cut the afternoon off. I'm going to get my meetings done in the morning, and I'm going to do something for me, my mental health, my mind, body, and spirit. And so I went to FDR Park and I walked, fed some ducks. I watched some kids playing soccer, doing different things like that. Just relaxed, had a nice little snack. You know, the weather cooperated just enough. It was a little cold yesterday, so I'm glad I did it today. And just reflected on how blessed I am and how blessed we are to be in a space where we can breathe, we can move, and we can actually enjoy and build on our health. And so this is a good time to get started. And whatever routine that you have been lacking, now's the time to get back on it again.
So you actually took some time of self-worth to exhale, decompress.
Yes, and something that you and I have talked about many times, I actually put my name on my calendar. And it said,
no,
Dr. Gene, Monday, April 4th. And that meant that time was for me. And so whatever you're doing, you have to put your name on your calendar. And then you have to follow through.
You have to own.
Yes, you have to follow through and do something. Doesn't have to be what I did. I worked out. I went to the park. I walked. Whatever works for you. But get out, move. The key is movement. You can't just sit in one chair. You can't just sit in the office. I know people have been sitting a long time. They've been working from home. They've been doing a lot of different things. But yes, drink your water. Yes, eat healthy. That's all. We all know all that. But you got to move. Get up and move.
So just take a mental health day to encompass the mind, body, and the spirit. It's all about you day.
Yeah, and sometimes, I'm trying to be realistic for some people. They may have to take a mental health hour. If you can't do the whole day, start where you are. I try to meet people where they are. Start with an hour. Start with a half an hour. Just start. Put your name on your calendar and do something just for you.
Well, we should do that, because in my house, my wife's got 15 minutes. She's got 15 minutes where I'll do whatever she wants me to do. Foot rub, back massage. She's telling me about her day and what's going on. So, you know what? I have never thought of taking, 15 minutes a day just for me. So, because I've always, it's that falls under self-care, yes?
It falls under self-care, Vince. And the thing is, I don't want to be too prescriptive about what that should be for individuals. So the people in your audience are so diverse, as you and I are diverse. And so what works for Vince may not work for your neighbor. What works for your neighbor may not work for me, et cetera, et cetera. So what it takes, self-care begins with tapping into your own memory of what you like. Some people, Vince, are going to have to think hard and long about what they like and what used to give them pleasure because it's been so long. Other people can come up with it right away, but you got to do it.
Yeah, so all of you guys, don't start hitting me up on Twitter talking about I'm not rubbing her feet for 15 minutes, okay?
Everybody doesn't get the same treatment.
So you have to find out what works for you. Okay. Exactly. So the W, wellness. What does that include? Is it more than what can we do to be more rounded or heal ourselves in a more rounded? You talked about exercise in the body. What do we need to do more for our mind and our emotional security and our spiritual side?
Yeah, great question, Vince. I would start with deconstructing your mind in terms of the things that you normally do. For instance, if your normal routines have turned out to be not so healthy these last 18, 24 months, you have to deconstruct that. Because human beings, we're so flexible. We're able to adjust to the moment. And so when tragedy comes, our mind, body, and spirit adjust. When different difficulties happen, we adjust. But unfortunately, what happens is when it's time to adjust back to something that is healthy, we stay in that survival mindset instead of that thriving mindset. And so what it took to get through the 18 months may not be the same thing you need to get through the next month or the next 3 months or the next 8 months. And so deconstructing the mind first and foremost, ridding yourself of those traumatic experiences. Understand, I didn't say forget them. I said ridding yourself of them because healing involves doing something different than what you've done before. If you continue to do the same thing over and over again, what do we say and get the same results? That's called not good planning. So what you want to do is reverse those things.
Or insanity.
Well, I won't use that word because that's not a psychological term. That's a legal term. And so I'll allow you to use it. But the main thing is
no problem.
What you were hitting on is so key, Vince, because the trauma that you mentioned. One of the first things I did as I started on this quest of Mental Health Mondays, I stopped inundating myself with the news. So on my phone, I can check the news at my own leisure. I took off the pings so I don't get pings and everything. I still can't get rid of unfortunately, because of my job, I still get those pings when there's a gunshot or there's a shooting. I still get those notices because of my position. But I don't listen to the news. I don't watch the news incessantly like people were doing for like that period of time. So I took my mind away from that. I took that out of my mind. I stopped reading negative things about what's going on in the world. I really kind of just filter. That's the word I'm looking for, Vince. I filtered the amount of information coming into my brain that was negative. The fear mongers, the pitting people against each other, all that stuff that we see on these different news networks. Shut that all out. No, don't need it. Not helping me. It's just driving up your anxiety. Took an active role in my own health. Again, I'm not saying that I'm, turned over a total new leaf. I still have a cup of coffee every day, still do that. But I'm doing more drinking of more water. I'm eating more reasonably. I'm not doing anything. I'm still eating what I want to eat, but I'm doing it reasonably. I'm eating smaller portions. I'm doing exercises for my brain, anagrams and word puzzles and things like that. Getting out and enjoying nature. Doing the opposite of sitting in front of a screen like we're doing now, because most of our jobs were sitting in front of the computer, not watching that TV tube we used to call the boob tube when I was younger, right? Not constantly looking at my phone. There's a disease now that because people who are bent over all the time, their necks are bent like that, comes from looking at your phone all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. You see people bent over all the time, young people, right?
Young people,
so those are little things. Those are little things, Vince, that we can do to reverse some of the negative health aspects that we've experienced.
Well, I know one thing that I was spent so much time during COVID, making sure that I was socially distanced from a lot of people. I should have been socially distanced from my refrigerator. So, During the start of it,
You all became good friends, did you?
yeah, me and my friends, we were just such buddies. Oh man, toilet paper shortage. I used to roll that toilet paper like I'm spinning on Wheel of Fortune. Then I started doling that bad boy out like it was a will. So,
Oh my goodness.
but we're going to look at some more on Mental Health Monday. Self-care is not being selfish. And I'm with the Wright doctor, Dr. Gene Wright. We'll be right back. 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
Your small business struggled through the pandemic to stay afloat. You need more exposure. Radio and printed ads are good for pet liners. Television commercials are overpriced. Social media ads start cheap, end up expenses. You need an ad team that can get you multimedia exposure. You need MyTV. MyTV will develop a commercial tailored to your business. To get your maximum sales, contact sales@theratemytv.church. Your small business.
And welcome back. I'm Vincent Squire. This is Mental Health Monday and What You Gotta Say. I'm with the Wright doctor, Dr. H. Gene Wright II. And we're talking about and self-care. So we left. I said self-care is not selfish. And a lot of people have disagreed with me on that fact. Doctor, what's the difference between selfish and self-care?
Yeah, selfish is more self-centered, meaning that you are only concerned with your own well-being and outcome, and you're not concerned about others. Self-care, on the other hand, is something that is a necessity, because if we are going to perform at our peak and our highest level and be the best that we can for ourselves, our family, and the communities that we serve, then we have to be healthy. And so by embracing self-care, you're actually providing yourself the opportunity to do all the things that people will benefit because of that. So you and I, we've talked about many times being a servant leader as an example. What does that mean? Well, that means that if we continue to give of ourselves and our tank begins to run towards empty, we're not going to be able to continue the community service type things that we do, things that people benefit from, the environments, the communities that you serve will miss out on what Vince does or what Dr. Gene does if we are laid up in a hospital somewhere, or if we are tired, or we are not able to give what we normally give. So we have to replenish, we have to refuel. And that's what self-care does. It makes sure that you can continue making a positive impact.
Let's take a deep dive.
Okay.
During the last 18 months, people have been drained, especially people of color. We watched a man get the life choked out of him, and that replayed over and over again. And,
Yeah.
there was this fear about people like me. There was this disease that was scouring and killing everyone. And we had so much misinformation that we didn't know what was real. And then we had to hold it together for our household. When stores shut down, we're trying to figure out, what are we going to eat? How am I going to provide? When our companies shut down, we were trying to figure out, wait a minute, how am I going to keep the lights on? I mean,
Yeah.
being a servant leader, that tank was like on fumes. You're talking about empty.
Yeah, absolutely, Vince. And I would add to that, a large group of leaders in the community, clergy, come to me on a regular basis and talk about being on empty and not knowing what to do and not being prepared for when they close the doors of their faith organizations. Now, there was not a mandate necessarily that you had to shut the doors. It was something that people did because it was the right thing to do from an ethical and from a health standpoint. But there were other places that stayed open, as you know.
There were churches that stayed open.
That's what I mean. And so,
Because
but they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to move forward. They didn't know how to do church. They didn't know how to do it because it was a new environment. People were afraid. People were going through all kinds of things. All the things you mentioned about watching a man be choked to death on national television, played over and over and over again, that impacted people around the country. And I'm answering questions to my 16-year-old son as to what he's witnessing. And I'm like, yeah, what you're seeing is real. Yes, this is not Hollywood. This is for real. This is happening. What happened on January 6th, the insurrection, that was real. And so, yes, you're right. People were afraid. People were stressed. And then you had this invisible killer called a virus. Some people believed it. Some people didn't believe it. Some people thought it was propaganda. And so you have all this fear mongering. And then you have people who do not care for others. So much, Vince, that you said drained our health mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually drained.
Yeah, I mean, and then you're looking at, okay, I'm the man. I've got to hold this together. I got to hold my family together. Wait a minute. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I mean, what?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because when you think about the people who are at the bottom of the rung, what we call race, gender, class issues, okay, women of color, get that trifecta of being in this patriarchal society that we live in, male-dominated society for those who need a clearer explanation. And
or
what that
as my wife calls it, the He-Man Woman Haters Club.
Yes, toxic masculinity are other words that people have used.
Yes.
But the problem is that male-dominated society, it doesn't cover everybody, okay? And so there are certain privilege that goes with being a certain gender. There are certain privilege that goes with being a certain color. In America, we go by color. We don't really go by ethnicity so much, right? Other countries kind of look at class more than we do. In America, we look at color. And what happens when you are judged or you are categorized because of your gender or your color or because of who you love or how you love? Those kind of things started weighing on the consciences and the actual physical health, burdening people. And I'm telling you, when you're stressed and you're anxious and depression and anxiety are really close together, when that happens, it kind of puts a heavy weight on your body, mind, and spirit. And so what we need to do now is recognize that happened. There's no clearing the mind and acting like that didn't happen. That's not the goal. We can learn from the past, right? But we can't live in the past.
Right.
We can look to the future, but we can't be anxious about the future. The only time you have right now that is under your control is today. And I know it sounds like a cliche, but it is so true. We inundate ourselves with worry, anxiety, and depression because we're worried about tomorrow, still living in tomorrow, right? And it hasn't come yet.
Still living in yesterday.
Yeah, living in yesterday, and we're worried about tomorrow, and it hasn't come yet. So what can you do today, right? And so that's why you have to make a conscious decision about what is good for your health. And it's not selfish to say, wow, I need to go get a checkup. How many people have had a checkup recently, right? Some people don't want to know. They think it's going to be bad news, so they don't go. Well, that's the opposite you need to do, right? Some people believe that what's going on, they can't do anything about. Well, guess what? You don't have to do anything about what's going on. You only have to handle what's going on for you and your family, right? And then you can gradually get back to some things that you can do outside of that sphere. So sometimes the stress, Vince, is because people are trying to solve the world's problems and they haven't solved their own. And the bottom line is you start with the square you're on and then you branch out, right? And when you wake up every day and take care of your health, mind, body, spirit, you will be in a much better position to assist others. You will be in a much better position to be a value add to others and to your community. And for some of us, that is actually a driving force that makes us feel good about being in this earth and being on this earth, is that we feel valued, we feel like we have worth, and we feel like we have something to contribute to society. That can take you a long way, but it all falls flat if you're not healthy.
So, as my grandmother used to say, you can't straighten up and clean up the world until you clean up your front porch.
Grandma was wise. Yes, grandma was wise. Yeah, clean up your space, right? And don't be so concerned about somebody else's space. And I think what we've seen with all this stress that you mentioned at the top of the program is we really have not embraced the love ethic, that Martin Luther King and Dietrich Bonhoeffer lived in the 20th century. Those are the two most recent examples that I can give you that lived that love ethic of love for those who may be your adversaries. I won't call them enemies. That's the biblical definition. But when you think about your adversary, who is your adversary and what does loving others do? You and I talked about this before in terms of what happened during 9/11 in 2001. We had a common enemy. Someone was attacking the country. What happened? The whole country came together and supported each other. We even laughed about, wow, New York, even New Yorkers were nice.
I know.
Brothers and sisters, everybody was, in that space of support. We didn't have that same thing, Vince, from the pandemic, the 2020, 2021. It wasn't that kumbaya, we have a common enemy. It was fractured. We were not on the same page. We were in the same storm.
No, but that was leadership.
No, I got it. I'm just saying that we have a comparison of how we can come together when tragedy strikes. We did not use and embrace that same strategy that we had seen work in 9/11, 2001. We went the opposite direction. Instead of embracing one another, we attacked one another. Instead of loving one another, we were critical. And I mean, come on, what reason would you have for shooting up an Amazon delivery truck or a FedEx delivery truck? What reason would you have for chasing people off your porch who are trying to deliver a package? What reason would you have? And think about this, Vince, the amount of stress and anxiety of the people who are being hateful. That can take years off your life, being hateful, being nasty.
Really?
Oh, yes, the data's out. The data is out. People who are mean, nasty, cruel, hateful, vengeful, we call it hostility. People that have hostility have a higher risk of heart disease. It's a fact. So that lack of embracing one another, that lack of reciprocity of helping one another actually takes away from your own health.
And shortens your life.
It shortens your life, Vince.
Oh, good. Because those miserable people, you know what?
I wasn't expecting you to say that.
Maybe God is right.
No, Vince, you got to embrace them. You got to embrace them. We got to love them.
Yes. Some of them I really like to love in a special way. I mean, I really want to lay hands on them.
We're going to work on you, Vince. We're
going to talk about how love has brought us through some tragedies. And this is Mental Health Monday with the Wright doctor, Dr. H. Gene Wright II. We'll be right back. 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
If your small business struggled through the pandemic to stay afloat, you need more exposure. Radio and printed ads are good for pet liners. Television commercials are overpriced. Social media ads start cheap, end up expenses. You need an ad team that can get you multimedia exposure. You need MyTV. MyTV will develop a commercial tailored to your business. To get your maximum sales, contact sales@theratemytv.church.
And welcome back for Mental Health Monday with the Wright Doctor, Dr. H. Gene Wright II. So during the break, we were talking about some tragic events that happened with us in America, and especially for people of color. The first time I've ever saw my parents cry was 54 years ago when they heard that Dr. King was assassinated. I mean, just together, embracing each other and crying, and you know, we were kids. We didn't know what was going on and what was happening, but they were embracing each other and going through it. And then after that, you know, started the riots, you know, in our neighborhoods. I mean, in Philadelphia, one of the best places to go was Columbia Avenue. They used to call it Jump Street with all the jazz bars and locations and food. And rioting has tore it down, and they have not built that neighborhood up since. But what had got us through was that the radio stations, or the black radio stations that we used to listen to, they just preaching and talking to people about what we're doing does not honor Dr. King's theory and belief of nonviolence and love. And as they started playing his speeches over and over again, it started to bring about a soothing and calmness. The same thing had celebrities like James Brown and Jesse Jackson and Abernathy and all of the movement leaders started going on the air and calming down people of color. I mean, so is that the love that, or self-love and care that we need to do to spread out to everyone, to bring comfort and healing to them?
Well, I think you hit on a couple of good examples in terms of the celebrities, as you mentioned, trying to have a collective message to say, hey, we know you're traumatized, we know you're upset, and you should be. But it's what you do when you're upset that can either make or break your healing. And certainly tearing down and destroying and hurting other people is not going to heal you. It's not going to fix anything. And so, yes, having those people come out with those soothing messages, yes, that is love. You know, it's that agape love. It's not a sentimental, romantic love that we're looking at here. We're talking about that love that can only come from your relationship with the divine being, because human beings, in and of ourselves, we are kind of selfish. We are self-centered. We are really concerned with our own progress and benefit. But there's something about tragedy. There's something about seeing a child that's hungry. There's something about seeing animals that have been mistreated. There's something about seeing an elderly person who does not have any resource other than to hope that someone cares about them. Those kind of things do normally touch a human heart. I don't know that I've seen as much of that in the last 2 years as I would have hoped. I certainly have seen it in places, but you talk about that 54-year anniversary of Dr. King's assassination, and I was kind of young, so I don't remember a lot of it, but what you say, I remember people talking about it, and it seems very accurate what you're saying. And so, yeah, I think we can do that today, Vince. I think we can again start with the square we're on. We can start with our own neighborhood. We can start with our own home, our own block, and check on people. You know, physical distance is not the same as social distance. I think we should be social, and still we can protect our physical health. And so, who do we know? Can we identify those who could benefit from our help? I think we can.
Our children. Let's start there.
Hey, it's a good place to start.
I mean, the children,
they're going through it.
In the Black community, Black children are committing suicide at a crazy rate.
Yeah, the rates have increased exponentially in the last 6 years, no doubt about
it. Let's look at how about people in our family, our brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, if we still have them? Have we actually reached out to them, had Zoom, talked to them, stayed in communication, checked on their mental health, see how everybody was doing? Or were we just saying, or were we just having a pity party for 18 months in our homes?
Well, I think that's the tragedy of the isolation, Vince. You just hit on it. That not being able to leave your home is devastating. Clearly, we all felt that. But it didn't mean you couldn't pick up the phone. You make a good point. It didn't mean that we could not use the technology that became available, right? I mean, think about it. You know, if you were that really smart person that invested in Zoom before the pandemic, you know, I need to hang out with you because, you know, think about the stock that in that situation. But, you know, in terms of thinking outside of our own needs, what I refer to as reciprocity. You know, example, you know, you see somebody on the side of the road who's trying to fix a tire, they're struggling, they don't have the equipment. You stop, you pull over, you have the equipment, you get out, you know, you make sure everybody's safe, there's nobody going to get involved. You help them with the tire, boom, no big deal. You try to get back in your car, what's the thing they want to do? They want to give you $5. They want to do something, you know, man, thank you for stopping and helping me. You know, thank you so much. That's a normal, just, hey, you helped me. Let me help you.
If I help you, don't insult me with $5.
But the point is, they want to do something, Vince.
Keep that. No, it's all right.
You may say, no, man, it's okay. I'm good. It's okay. But they want to give you something. They want to do something because you took the time to help them. I'm saying we can have that same simple mindset. It doesn't have to be something huge and overwhelming, some big, huge plan. No, just your basic, simple humanity. Share your humanity with someone who needs it. You don't know what a smile, what a hug, what a case of water, with a well-timed hamburger or whatever it is, if they may be vegan, maybe not a hamburger, but some type of way to get some nutrition. Having a conversation with somebody that nobody talks to. You know, sometimes we're so judgmental of people that don't look like us, don't eat like us, don't do like us, don't dress like us, that we become isolated, not in our own homes like we were during the pandemic, but in our own minds, in our own culture, in our own habits. And so we're just out walking around ignoring humanity, ignoring others because of the difference, instead of embracing the opportunity of the similarity. And every human being is interdependent, which means we need each other. We don't just need our families. That's great. Yes. We don't just need our jobs. Yes, we need that. Sure, we need food. But you know what human beings need also? They need other human beings. And that intellectual sharing of ideas is vital. Having a conversation with somebody can keep you alive. right?
Right.
So sometimes we try to make it bigger than it is, Vince. It's not that huge. It's the simple things that make us human. And it's those simple things that we should share with one another as we continue to try to get our way back to some form of humanity.
Okay. So we're going to come back, and I'm hoping Dr. Wright's going to help us to heal our humanity as we heal others. I'll see you all in just 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
Your small business struggled through the pandemic to stay afloat. You need more exposure. Radio and printed ads are good for pet liners. Television commercials are overpriced. Social media ads start cheap, end up expenses. You need an ad team that can get you multimedia exposure. You need MyTV. MyTV will develop a commercial tailored to your business. To get your maximum sales, contact sales@theratemytv.church.
And welcome back. I'm with the Wright Doctor, Dr. H. Gene Wright II, and this is Mental Health Monday. So we talked about healing our humanity, sweeping our front, our porch. After we've accomplished that, how do we reach out to others?
Excellent question. I think one of the first things you have to know where you are. What is your location? I know your listeners are from, Jersey and Delaware and Philadelphia and lots of other places. So in your individual space, whether it's your home, if you are going back to work, if you have been back to work, if you're visiting a faith community, if you're doing things in the community, where is it that you spend your time? Where is it that you have access to others? That's what you first need to identify. Where is your opportunity, right? And when you identify that, then you can go the next step, which is to find out in the spaces that you've identified as an opportunity, what is the need? These are simple questions. Identify the population, identify what the need is. And then when you identify the need, then you can next identify whether you have the wherewithal to contribute anything in that need. So obviously, if the need is somebody needs housing and you don't have housing, well, that would not be the thing that you would be able to provide. But there may be other things. Maybe you have resources. Maybe you have connections. Maybe you have a network. But the first thing you have to do is meet people where they are in terms of what they tell you. And this is the thing that I always try to share with people. I don't need to guess what your need is. I can simply ask you, right? I don't have to be the expert on you. I don't have to be the expert on a certain group of people. I don't have to be an expert on a certain community. But what I do have to be is transparent and genuine in my quest to help. That's what I mentioned, the love ethic. That's what I mentioned. What is it I can do? Not so big I'm not trying to get, in front of a microphone. I'm not trying to get an interview or a press conference. That quiet behind the scenes help that people need. And when you have a genuine quest to help, people will provide you an opportunity, right? Because people are very good at seeing sincerity, and they're very good at seeing self-aggrandizement. And there's a huge difference. And so those three things. First, where are you? Where is your opportunity where you are? You don't have to get on 3 buses and a train to find opportunity. It's right outside your door. Once you identify that, ask the simple question, how I can be of help? How can I be of help? Maybe you have to go to a faith community and ask them, hey, do you have any indigent folks that need some help? That may be your quest. That may be how you do it. You may not have that connection. And so you may go to a different type of social service agency that is a senior citizens facility, that allows volunteers. You may go to a youth organization that has youth that need help. So and it's not a lot of legwork. It's a simple thing. First, identify what your interest is. There are people who just do better with seniors. Okay, then that's your mission. Find the seniors that need help. Other people want to work with teenagers, do that. Some people contribute to food kitchens and know where all the best ones are and know how to get people there, then do that, right? But I love that piece that you talked about before we went to break, and that is calling people. Because you talked about starting with your own home, calling relatives, calling seniors. There are people who, if not for those opportunities that were gone for 18 months, that was their only opportunity to interact with other human beings, whether it was a faith community or going to some rec park or recreation situation or some seniors events. When those were gone, and most of them have not returned, then it behooves us individuals to pick up the baton and say, you know what, let me just ask a few people. Again, I can't serve 100 people, but I can serve 1 or 2 here. And then maybe that'll turn into something. And if I do it over a period of months, it may turn into 100. But I can't start in my mind thinking I got to help 100 people. No, I have to do the small things. And I think if all of us pick 1 or 2 small things, man, think about the difference that would make in our community. So that's what I'm suggesting, Vince, is that we don't guess, we don't wonder, we ask.
Okay. So here's one thing that I'm leery about in asking or wanting to help. Sometimes what we consider help, the people who we're trying to help consider it to be a hindrance. I mean, sometimes when we are helping people, if we're not helping them exactly the way that they want to be helped, they consider that to be a waste of their time.
Okay.
I mean, it shocked me. Okay, it's like, take the time to buy someone a birthday present. I mean, you thought about it, you shopped for it, you got it, you wrapped it, you delivered it. And because it wasn't what they wanted, they just had this huge look of disappointment on their face.
Yeah, I think that's different. Yeah, I think that's different than what we're talking about. I think the reaction you're talking about is one that I'm familiar with. But when I'm talking about helping people,
lack of gratitude. No, I mean, what do you call it?
Helping people in the context of this conversation. I'm going to take the time to ask them because I don't know them. If I'm wrapping a birthday present for somebody, I probably know them fairly well. But if I'm asking someone, or I'm going to a faith community and asking who needs help, or I'm going to a social service agency saying, what can I do to help you all? Maybe I'm helping the people who help the people. Maybe I'm not in direct contact with the people who need the help. Maybe I'm doing something to help an organization who needs funding, who needs food, like the food pantry, whatever. So you really have to be realistic about what you are capable of doing so that you don't find yourself trying to give help to people who don't want your help. That's not the goal here.
Right. So I guess it's better to ask.
Yeah, identify where the opportunity is. identify who actually needs help, and then you ask them what it is that you need. And then that's on me to determine whether I'm capable of giving you what you need. I'm not going to just give you something and say, hey, well, you take it or leave it. This is what I got to give. No. What do you need? If you need $500,
I need $1 million, Doc. Can you?
I may not be the one, right? But if you need a ride to your physician once a month or once a week, and you're elderly and you can't afford a bus pass, I probably can help you.
And you,
all right. If
you and you got a couple of masks in all your shots.
There you go. If you don't get a chance to get out and about, and you're in my neighborhood, and I know that I used to see you walking in the park, and now I don't see you no more. And I don't. We're not best friends, but I know you to some degree, or I know your son or your grandson, someone who knows you. There are ways to help people and ask and get the information about what they need. There are people who help others who need help. Those helpers need help, right? So there are multiple things and ideas and opportunities. We don't have to just throw our hands up and say, well, because I can't think of any who to help, I just can't do nothing, or it's too overwhelming, or there's too many people that need help. It can be overwhelming. But when you take care of your health first, and you make sure that you are of sound mind and body and spirit, because guess what? We don't want you over there making it worse. We don't want you re-traumatizing people. So you got to have yourself together to at least good enough that you can be a benefit to someone else. And trust me when I tell you, when you serve others, you do benefit. You get a benefit from being a benefit to others.
Lessons I learned being a Boy Scout. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Mental Health Monday, and I'm Vincent Squire with none other than the Wright Doctor, Dr. H. Gene Wright II. See you soon.
Your small business struggled through the pandemic to stay afloat. You need more exposure. Radio and printed ads are good for pet liners. Television commercials are overpriced. Social media ads start cheap, end up expenses. You need an ad team that can get you multimedia exposure. You need MyTV. MyTV will develop a commercial tailored to your business. To get your maximum sales, contact sales@theratemytv.church.
And welcome back. I'm here with the Wright Doctor, Dr. H. Gene Wright. We're talking about helping. So in your profession, how do you help people or the community or the town and where you live?
Yes, well, my training is as a clinical and forensic psychologist. That's what I've been doing for almost 30 years. And what that really means is that I have the opportunity to work with communities and individuals who have behavioral health challenges. And behavioral health, when I say behavioral health, I mean mental illness and or substance use or dependence that also have some type of interaction with the legal system. So that is a huge group of people.
You're talking real behavioral health. You're not talking about a 2-year-old that keeps saying no.
No, I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about, when we need resources and support. So that's the one thing. But the last 2 years, Vince, I can tell you, it's been sort of a switch because of all the things we've been talking about with the pandemic and with, the misinformation and the hatred and the divisiveness that's out there. A lot of people have been coming to me more recently to talk about trauma and asking me, wow, how do I know if I've been traumatized? And it's a great question because sometimes life is so routine with the hurt and the pain and the disappointment that people are under and the stress, they don't even realize they're dealing with trauma. And so asking that question about that is really important. So I do a lot of training, education, and providing people with information, and not just information, but first you have to identify what's going on before you can access the help. And so I work in community groups. Before the pandemic, I used to be able to go into the prisons and work with mostly men there. I didn't get a chance to go into the prisons that house the women, but I worked in some of with the youth, and work with lots of faith communities, because a lot of clergy and faith leaders want to know how to recognize behavioral health challenges, how to deal with trauma themselves, how to deal with the trauma in their congregation. So there's a variety of things that I've been blessed to do for 20 plus years, but also in these last 2 years, it's been very, very specific to anxiety, trauma, and depression.
So you've been working on book number 4 now?
Number 3. The first book was The Cure for Spiritual Depression. The second one was Find Strength in Your Struggle, Discover the Miracle in You, which is available on Amazon right now, or drhgene.com. And right now I'm working on Healthy Pastor, Healthy Church, Who Comforts the Spiritual Leader. And that one was really influenced by a lot of the clergy that have come to me and said, hey, Doc, we need help. I need help helping people, and I need help myself. And so I thought about that. It's like, wow, what are people going through that have the responsibility to help others? And so I kind of talk to people, and I sort of look at clergy and even school teachers. I'll add them in a similar category as first responders, firefighters, law enforcement, EMS, EMT type folks. So as I looked at that, that kind of made me think about, wow, they need help. Who helps them? Who comforts them? They carry a lot of other people's burdens.
Yeah, because they're always in a state of hypervigilance.
Always. People, unfortunately, congregants believe and expect them to know all things, be all things, and solve all things.
Right.
And they're just human beings.
Right.
They're just men and women like the rest of us, who have challenges, who get tired, who need refueling, all the things we've talked about earlier. Clergy need that too. And sometimes it's a dual process where the clergy allow people to put them on a pedestal and they don't belong there. And then sometimes clergy do not want to deal with some of the challenges that people bring because they don't feel qualified. And that's a challenge.
Excuse me, doctor?
Yes, sir.
For all of y'all on my Facebook pages that talk about it, about your pastor, what have you done to help your pastor lately?
Oh, that's a great question, Vince. That's an excellent question.
But too bad we only got 3 minutes left of the show. So
that's one of the things. But that's one of the things I covered in the book. I'm not just talking about, but I talk about what it takes to be a healthy pastor, and what do you need to be a healthy church. You need to be a trauma-informed church. But we can't just stop there, Vince. Healthy pastor, healthy church can embrace a healthy community. Why? Right. Because in Black and brown communities, it is the faith community that most often has the most influence and has the most direct access to the individuals that need help. And that's why it's that 3-pronged: healthy pastor, healthy church, to embrace a healthy community. Yeah, and main thing that pastors have to look out for is hurt people, because hurt people tend to want to hurt people. Sometimes, certainly the risk goes up. And I can tell you that there's a lot of hurt people who did the opposite. They healed, and then they learned to heal others. Right. So there's all that, because we're all diverse. And you're right. Sometimes people that have been hurt others, and sometimes people who have been hurt find a way to heal others. And so it's one of those things that human beings have a very strong opportunity to embrace humanity. So, Dr. Wright. Yes, sir. Really quick, for those who missed where they can get your book, tell them how they can find it. They can go to my website, Dr. H. Gene, that's Jean, drhgene.com, or they can go to Amazon.com and get it as well. Great. It's Mental Health Monday. And tune in tomorrow, because we've got the 3 wise ones, and we're dying to hear what they're going to talk about. So thank you, Dr. Wright. I very much always enjoy you on the show, and I'm hoping people are looking forward to your show, your breakout. Yes, I'm looking forward to it as well.
Great. So one thing that Dr. Wright said that really stays in my mind is the simple fact of helping each other. And one of the things that he said is agape, love, the love of God, all powerful. In the Bible, it talks about a great deal of gifts, but he also said, and when he talks about these, the greatest is love. No matter what you can do, the greatest thing you can do for humanity is have love. And Jesus said this: be good to one another, be kind to one another. In doing this, people will know that you are my disciples if you have love for one another, as I have love for you. It doesn't cost a thing to love, but it does produce so much in terms of emotional, spiritual wealth and riches. So, talk to your pastor, tell him you love him. Talk to your family, tell them you love them. Even though you may think that we're through this pandemic and the struggles, the mental health scars are going to be with a lot of people for a long time, and you can help them through it. So, until tomorrow, if it's God's will, I'll be back to talk with you. I'm Vincent Squire. God bless everyone.